right, hello. Hi. I am making a quick video. We'll see how quick it is, but a video on how to get started with Infinity the game on Tabletop Simulator. I had someone ask me how to do that, and my old video that I made is out of date, so I thought I'd make a new one. So the idea of this is step zero up to how to actually use Tabletop Simulator to play a game. Um, so let's get started. What we're looking at right now is the Tabletop Simulator like title page. If to get Tabletop Simulator, you go on Steam. If you don't have Steam, get Steam. And you get Tabletop Simulator. It's currently about 20 bucks. You install it via buying it and installing it. And then once it's in there, to get the Infinity mods, you go to library, you go to Tabletop Simulator, you go to Community Hub, and this will take you to this screen, and you go to Workshop tab, and then you will type Infinity the game, hit enter, and a few different ones will pop up. Some of these are old versions of the game. Some of them are maps for the mod, but the ones you want to download are these two by Iskander. Can I zoom in? I cannot. Okay, so they might not be the first ones for you. They're the first ones for me because they're already installed. Um, Let me just uninstall them real quick. So to install them, you saw how easy it was to uninstall. You just click this blue plus here and you're subscribed to them. Click the blue plus here. You're subscribed to, you want to subscribe to both of these. Infinity the game, which is the base mod, has the table, has everything you need to play the game, except for it doesn't have any models. This Infinity the game dash models um, will get you those models, and these are updated um, programmatically. I think they use some kind of update uh, program to get these with very accurate stats. There are also some 3D models. I'm not going to get into those. You can see there's some right here. I So yeah, you can get those. Um, those don't have that update mechanic, so they tend to be out of date. So we're not going to use them right now to get started. Okay, I've installed Tabletop Simulator. I've clicked these two to subscribe to them. You can see they have the little check box instead of the green plus now that I'm hovering over it. And then we open up Tabletop Simulator and we'll create a room. If you are playing with other people who aren't in the room with you, which is 99% of the games, you'll click multiplayer. You will put in a server name. You will put in a password or not. It defaults max players to 4. That's fine. I normally leave it at that. But if you want to make sure no one else can get in, you can put it down to 2. And then we create server. And it'll pop up to this. These are a bunch of different games you can play on Tabletop Simulator. We are mostly concerned with Infinity the game. So we're going to look at the workshop section here. Classic is just stuff that TTS comes with. DLC is stuff you can pay for. But workshop is stuff that comes from mods that we've subscribed to. So you can see I have a few different ones here, but I'm going to click workshop. It's going to have those same ones at the top. I think it does it by whichever one was updated last. And I'm going to go to Infinity of the game. So I click that, and it'll say, you sure you want to load? You click load. Voila. This is the base mod for Infinity of the game. You can see it doesn't have table set up. That's something you can find some online or in some of those mods. but I'm just going to pull out one that I already have. Um, if you are playing with someone and you both don't know how to um, get a table set up, there are discords for Tabletop Simulator that you can find, and or you could ask in the comments below. I might link them in the comments below, but feel free to ask. I'll respond and try and get you all sorted out. But these are some tables that I have just saved, so I'm gonna bring that up. So you get a little bag, you put it here, it does the magic over here. We have a table. Cool. Now we need our models. So we go to games again, and instead of, if I click Infinity Game dash models right here, it'll ask if I want to load. That'll completely get out of the base set here and load us into something else. That is not what we want. I'm going to click cancel. You want to go to these three dots here, which is option. And if this isn't on your top 5 most recent ones, you could again go into workshop. It works just the same. You go to options, I go to search. You can go to additive load. I'll show you both. Okay, so click additive load, and it will load that into this game. And these are specifically set up to work this way. So you can see off to the left here, this secondary side table has popped up, and we have all these tiles with all the different factions, all the different parent factions, right? If you're playing Pano and you're playing Neoterra, you still just go to the Pano. These are boxes that have all the models in them. So let's say you're Pano and you want your models. I click search here, and they're all going to be in here. There's a little search function up here if I want a Swiss missile, because they're freaking amazing. You kind of have to hover over them to see what they do, and it's not working properly right now. But this is the missile launcher. You can pull it out onto the table, and there, I got a model, right? That's awesome. So I'm just going to pull out a bunch of these guys, but you would obviously pick out whatever you need for your list. And I think they're pretty good about making sure all the models for a faction are available. So if I went here and look for McMurrow in Hawk Islam, he's in there, but he will also be in Ariadna. So you don't have to look at a model's specific faction that's its home faction or whatever. You just go to the parent faction of whatever sectorial you are rocking. All right, so we've got models, we've got a table, we're ready to play. That is awesome. So once models are out, you click on them, left click, and it picks them up slightly. Let me zoom in here a bit harder. You click it, it picks it up, and then you can kind of move it around. You can use the shadow to tell exactly where it will land. And everything can go, this is a simulator, right? It's a physics simulator, so things will fall over if they're not, placed in a way that would support their base. As far as I know, the physics of these models are based just on their bases. So, these 2D cutouts don't have any mass to them, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, so click, move it around. I should talk about the way I'm moving around. I've been doing that a lot. So zoom in out is, your scroll wheel on your mouse. If you want to use ASDW, that does this panning motion. And if you want to change what angle you're looking at, you can use right click, and it'll grab whatever wherever your mouse is, and you can drag that around to change the angle you're looking at. Um, I use all of those in combination. Additionally, instead of ASDF, you can use the scroll wheel button, like you physically push down on the scroll wheel. If your mouse has that, it will grab, and instead of rotating, it'll pan. So I largely use the mouse. I will use ASD. What is it? ASDW. Yes, I will use ASDW a little bit, but mostly I'm doing things with the mouse to check things. All right, awesome. Back to manipulating our little minis here. Uh, these should all have line of fire markings on them to change their facing. Q and E on the keyboard will rotate them. If I'm hovering over the Swiss guard and I hold Q, he will start rotating. What is that, anti-clockwise? And E is clockwise. It's the other way. Yeah. So that should get you through deployment, right? If you need states, if you need them to go prone, a lot of the common states are right here. Prone, wounds, orders, and such. So if I click and drag out of here, these are infinite bags. So no matter how many times I click this, it'll generate another token, another prone token. And you can just set that next to your guy, and hey, look, he's prone. Simulating the tabletop. The boop, boop, boop. Okay, so you deploy, they deploy. Let's say you're going first, so you need to generate your orders. So this, I right clicked on it to highlight the entirety of the, whatever you want to call this, order board, command board, something like that. This is the kind of default way of keeping track of your orders. There are, to start with, a regular order, lieutenant order, and 4 command tokens. If you need more command tokens or lieutenant orders, I hover over lieutenant order and copy and paste it. So you can right click and do copy, and then right click off of it and do paste. I have to be off of this thing too. It has to be in an empty spot. So paste, and then you can pull it over. What I do instead of that, obviously I was not super familiar with that, is Control C, which is a shortcut for copy, and Control V, and wherever your hand is, I'm doing Control V a bunch right now, another copy of whatever you copy pasted will come up. Now, you got to be a little careful with that. Let me show you why. If you, let's say we have a couple of regular orders here, and I've got these highlighted by whatever method, and I'm like, oh, I want to copy a lieutenant order. So I hover over this and copy, and then over here I paste. Oh, well, I got a bunch of them. It'll copy and paste whatever you have highlighted in addition to whatever you are hovering over. Not a big deal. You can delete them by right clicking and deleting, or by hovering over them and hitting the backspace or delete key. Okay, so I got 10 regular orders. It's great. Let's say one of these is actually a tech B, right? I want an irregular order. These orders, these order tokens, have 4 states. You can see when I hover over it, it says 1/4, which means 1 out of 4 states, and then it says regular order, which is the name of the state it is currently in. The other states are irregular, tactical, and unconscious. And you can cycle through these in a couple ways. I hover over them and hit the number key that is relevant. Of note, the numpad, if you have one on your keyboard off to the right, does not do this. It's only the numbers above the typing part of your keyboard that will cycle through these with 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 does nothing because these don't have 5 states, but 1, 2, 3, and 4, I can switch between them pretty easily. You could also right click and there's a state drop down here that has 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to see which one is which, you can hover over it and it'll tell you this one's tactical, this one's unconscious, whatever. This is what. So this is how you make your order pool. Let's say I had this for my order pools. As you're spending orders, you can flip them, and they have a kind of desaturated black and white side to show that they've been spent. And the flipping happens by hitting F. Again, there's probably a thing you could do with right clicking. Almost all of this can be done with right clicking. And if you forget the shortcut, it will tell you. If, like, instead of flip, you can see it says F above my mouse, and it'll flip. So these are game pieces. You can rotate them like this. What will happen, though, is there are specific, you can see like the shadow of the token down here. There are specific lock points that are on these boards. It's probably easier to see if I use color. And it will also orient your tokens. Lieutenant Order has 3 spots it can go. If you have 2 Lieutenant Orders, you can use these 2 spots. If you have 1, you can just use that center one. Similarly with command tokens, I think there's a central one if you have +1 command token on one of your guys. Okay. Almost there. So you are now, I'm just going to randomly pull out some nomads too. Bunch of Aguacils versus a bunch of Swiss guards. That's a fair fight, right? You can see I can select multiple things by drag clicking over them and then moving them around. You can also do like control clicking to select multiple objects. I don't normally use that very much unless I'm doing fire team movement and I know they're going to be moving for a while, and I just kind of move them all together. What I do it a lot with is tokens, right? Instead of moving this guy and then his token, I will select both of them and move them. But speaking of movement, you're ready to spend orders now, and your pure link team of Swiss missiles is ready to move out. Let's just say they're like this, right? We're not going to do a fire team. We're just going to move one guy at a time. Okay, so again, to move people, you click them and move them. You want to be able to measure how far deployment zone, this checkerboard that's on the map. This is every 4 inches. So this is 4 inches, this is 8 inches, and this is 12 inches. Obviously, to use for deployment, generally the 12-inch deployment zone, you're going to use the first 3 squares, the first 3 rows to deploy your guys. If you have 4 deployment, 4 inches, you could go another square forward. That's what this grid is for. You're going to want to turn that off for gameplay, so you can't like pre-measure or whatever. So you go to options, you go to grid, you turn off show lines, and then you close grid, and that grid is gone. All right, now you're ready to move out. Okay, so to move, you can pick up your guy and move him, but you need to know how far he goes. If you hold tab, there is and move your mouse. It will measure how far a thing is, and this will be how you do ranges, right? You'll just measure out to here, and this guy's 3.4 inches away. And when you click a guy, you can click a guy, then hold tab, and while holding click and tab, move, and it will show you how far you moved. So if you want to move this guy exactly 4 inches this way, you can. And then you unclick tab and then unclick mouse. The order there does matter. It's click tab, untab, unclick. And this is part of something you'll get used to. If you do tab first and then click, you won't grab the guy. So you have to grab the guy first. And then if you let the guy go, if you unclick, he'll drop, but now you're in this measuring mode, and you can't pick guys up anymore. Um, while in this measuring mode, you can, do some. You're never going to be. I never use the measuring mode by itself. I normally use it via the tab key. But if you're in this and you want to go back to the other, it's on this vertical menu on the left. There is the very top one is the default grab option, and you can go back to that. So something you'll have happen a lot is when you're first starting, you'll get the order of operations wrong and you'll have to go and click the grab thing. Alternatively, you could hit F1 to get out of um, the ruler mode. Uh, all of these are shortcutted to various F keys. Um, the only one I use is grab. Speaking of this line tool, which is what the measuring tool is, I was calling it a ruler because it shows a little ruler, but apparently it's called line. This, if you hover over this, this shows your current settings. Different people do have different settings. What I use is inch, 3D, and free. Other people use 2D, which will only measure along, 2D. If I have 3D and I measure from here up the stairs, it's going to give me the diagonal distance here, which is like, here I'm starting right outside this box and going up the stairs. It's 3 inches. If I did that in 2D, it would only measure the distance if you were looking straight down and says 2 inches, right? This is useful if you're vaulting, because vaulting doesn't account for vertical distances. I just always stay in 3D. I don't think anybody switches their line settings very much. But a lot of people do 2D and maybe it's auto, which will snap to different. So if I want to measure between these two guys and I just hit tab and click on this guy, you could see it's measuring from the edge of almost the edge of his base. And if I hover over this guy, it'll snap to it and it will give you a measurement between the two. I don't use this because of that inaccuracy between where the edge of his base actually is and how far it goes in. So you can see it kind of goes a little ways into his base. And there are reasons why that is. For most measuring, 95% of the time that's fine. But when things get really close and you need to know, is that guy in my zone of control? Give him a little. So measuring this way, we could see it's touching both of them and it's 8 inches. They're in zone of control. If we do the did I already have it like that? Yeah, so if we're snapping to, you can see it says 8.2. So something to be aware of with those settings. I'm getting a little into the weeds here. I use 3D and free, measures diagonals if you need zone of control that is not diagonal. It's, this guy's up here. I need to know if this guy's in zone of control and I'm closer to 8 inches away diagonally. You're like, is this guy actually in zone of control or not? It says he's not, but if you do measure this way, it is in. What I'm doing right now is shift and tab at the same time. This will probably pull up your Steam overlay. You can change that setting if you need to. I use this for my measuring of zone of control, shift and tab at the same time. Very helpful for that specific purpose. It's also helpful for if you're like using um, climbing plus or whatnot, or just regular climbing. Okay, we've gone over movement of units. We've gone over measuring between units, so that will help, with range bands when you're fighting. You may have noticed that these units have two states. All the units from that mod that has all the 2D units should have at least two states. Swiss Guards have a camo state, so that will pull out that. Let me show you an Aguasil. So if they don't have camo, it's just a silhouette, and you use this, to check line of sight. Does this guy's over here and this guy's over here? Does this guy see that guy? No, the silhouette's out, or if this guy's slightly over, and then oh yeah, the silhouette's in, right? Um, that is state 2. State 1 is the default mini. You could see that camo -6 has a more watery looking pattern. The camo with mimetism -3. Let me find Farzan real quick. Has a more traditional camo pattern, right? Um, these are also colored different. If they were colored the same, you can see the difference in the types of camo. But I think that's enough to get people playing. There's a lot more. There's all these boxes over here that have states, and if you need fire team tokens, they're in coordination groups. Right click and search. But all of these tiled things work the same way as the minis over here. They're just bags that have, this HVT box has 28 HVTs in it. This has 10 scenario markers. You can right click them and go through them as you need. Dice. We didn't talk about dice. So the default, the way you roll dice is with this little dice roller here. Red side and blue side have their own dice. If you're on the red side, you should click your name, whatever your username is up here and to the right. Click change color. It'll put you to the default view, which has blue on the right and red on the left. I'm going to click the red. And now you can see that these are actually transparent for the red player. So if you have secret stuff, your army before you deploy, airborne troops, your classified, which I will get to in a second, those can all, go in here. I'm the red guy. I can see that the Swiss guard hacker is in here. If I change my color to blue, I can't see that anymore. It just looks like a red, kind of mildly transparent box. I can't interact with the stuff in here. That's how that works. There are two of those boxes. There's one off to the left. There's one off to the right. I don't use these private info cards or hidden info drop. But you can check them out if you want. The decks are right here. If you hover over them and hit R, that'll shuffle them. And then to deal yourself a card, click and drag. But quickly, if you click and hold, it'll grab the whole deck. So if you just want one or two, you can do that. You can put them in your secret area and then flip them over with F. And yeah. Back to dice. Okay. This number down here is how many dice you were rolling. This is the object that it's going to roll. It's going to make a bunch of copies. Say I want to roll 5 dice. I click on the plus to 5. Oh, wait, I got it up to 6. Click the minus to bring it back down. It should stop at 1. You can't go below 1. I don't know if it has a max, but 5 is pretty good. Clear. What does clear do? Probably clears the dice. So you click the number and it'll roll the dice. Wait a second, and it will, at the bottom left, it'll tell you what you rolled as well as a notification came up, kind of. Let me do that one more time with black background so you can see the notification pop up. I rolled 4 dice. Wait for them to stop rolling. It'll tell you what you rolled in ascending order, right? It does not pay attention to which die was which. So if you have a split, if you're like splitting burst or whatever, you're going to want to use the dice roller twice. Yeah, I think clear might just clear the dice faster. Yeah, you click clear and the dice go away. You want print to be on because that's what's sending it to the chat in the bottom left. I have my chat always on, but I think by default it is not. Yeah, so I had print off so it didn't come up. Okay, so leave the settings as they are. Just use the plus minus and this guy. If you want to get fancy, you could find a faction die off to the from the red's perspective off to the right. It has all the factions ? Maybe not some of the newer ones. Does it have next wave? Don't know. Doesn't matter. Pick out the cool one you like, and you can just move this guy out, move this guy here, and now when you roll, it will roll those dice. The text is always red though, because that's your player color. If that's the color you picked, if you were blue, it would do blue. Yeah, I think that's good enough to get people going. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and keep on playing.